Hello, it's Hope. Welcome to Hopefully Here. I am super stoked that you clicked on the video. Thank you for joining me. Up next in the Read a Book for Every Booktuber that I follow, we have The New Life as recommended by SavidgeReads. It is nighttime, so I'm going to grab the book and maybe start reading it, but I will catch up with you tomorrow. Let's talk The New Life by Tom Crewe, shall we? I don't know if you can tell, but it is the most glorious, gloomy gray day in the Pacific Northwest today. We're getting so much rain. It is the perfect hot chocolate reading weather, and I am very much looking forward to it because I have just under halfway to get through in this book. So this book, as mentioned earlier, was brought to my attention because of Simon at SavidgeReads, who does a lot of literary fiction, and he's very much in the book community. I don't know exactly what his job is, but he works with libraries or something. He's always at book festivals, just lives to be, from the outside, a very intriguing life, and he's very knowledgeable about books. So I trust his recommendation. This is one that I have heard him talk about a couple of times, not one that I initially thought I needed to read, but it is one that I was able to get quickly and he loved, and that's part of my criteria for this challenge, are books that will get to me in a good period of time. So we're gonna do this one. This is, from the onset, this is a very sexy book. There is a lot of talk about sex and the roles of male and female partnerships, or male and male partnerships, or female partnerships. It's interesting. It's a fiction book, but it's very academic sort of, because the characters are writing about inversion or homosexuality essentially, and it is reading very literary. It is a very literary book, and I like it, I think, but it's interesting how I'm confused. I'm not confused, but I have mixed feelings is maybe the better way of putting it. I have mixed feelings about this book just because the story is interesting, but the way the story is being written, I'm not loving, I think, is more what it is. And there are some parts of the story that's written through letter between these two men who are collaborating on this book together, but they've never met. And the relationship is strictly just this book. Like, there's nothing romantic or anything going on between the two of them. As of now anyways. And they both live in unconventional marriages. And so that part of the story I like. But then these characters start having these very intellectual conversations, and I find them to be a little dry, I think, is what I'm feeling right now. So I'm actually not reading this very quickly, but I hope to finish it. The goal actually would be to finish it today, because I'm I think I'm ready to be done with this book. I'm ready to know where it goes, but I'm also ready to move on from these characters, which is fine. It's fine. It is what it is. You're not going to win at every book, and it is one that I will have been glad to read because I trust Simon's taste in books. But this one may not be such a win for me that was for him, and that is totally okay. Reading is very subjective. So let's make the hot chocolate. Let's read some more of this book, and I will update you either when I have more to say or when I have completed it. I don't want to give any spoilers, but we just got to a scene at about the page 275 mark, and Catherine, who is the wife of one of the men, John, who's writing this book, let me just tell you, Catherine just stood up for herself in a really great way, and I am here for it. I really like it because while what John and the other man doing, the two men writing the book, John and Henry, what they're doing is obviously a good thing, they are hurting a lot of people in the process. And Catherine just put her foot down about something. I'm here for it. I love it a lot. Ready for some final thoughts? One is I ended up liking the ending way more than I thought I would. So that's a win. It is a little slow moving, in my opinion, but I do find it interesting. The author's note at the end talks about what was taken from real life for the during the Oscar Wilde trials, which are very, very relevant to this book, and what he was able to take from real life and put into the book. And I found that interesting. I did like ultimately where the characters ended up because it's not the most satisfying of endings, although I don't know how, even in reading this, I don't know how you would think as a reader that it could be satisfying, but where the characters end, I think, well, maybe not happily ever after necessarily, I think they still end in a good spot, in my opinion, and kind of where they should end, and I find that to be interesting. There is still a lot of ambiguity in the ending, in that you don't really know 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, where they're going to be in their life, and I find that to be really fascinating. So ultimately this was an interesting story. Like I said, you are following two men who, through their academic pursuits, their paths kind of cross, and they decide to write this book together, kind of in defense of homosexuality and why it shouldn't really be such a big deal. And then these Oscar Wilde trials start happening, and they see how the public responds to him, and it goes from there. And so you're following these men in their two individual lives, but also in this book that they've created together. And so it's really almost got three different stories, because outside of this book, the two men's lives, while they are connected, they don't cross. And I find that to be really interesting. I preferred Henry over John, but I think that's because John had a very self-centered way of looking at things, and sometimes it got annoying. And like I said in a previous clip, when his wife finally kind of did something and stood up for herself, I actually really liked that. Where Henry, just his mind is so different from John's, and how he feels about certain things and why he gets into this project to begin with, his motivation behind it is very different from the motivation of John's. Anyways, the characters in themselves were really interesting. The writing was good. It was a little slow, and like I said earlier, some of the conversations got very intellectual, and I found them to be a little dragging, but that's just me. I'm glad to have read the book. It's not an all-time favorite, but I am certainly thrilled to have picked it up, and it will be on my finished reading list on Storygraph, so it's kind of nice. Anyways, that is the wrap-up of The New Life, and I think this has been book 8 in my reading Booktuber challenge. So I'm slowly working my way through. I've got to get a little bit of a mosey on. This one and the one prior took a little bit longer than I thought, and so my renewals at the library are coming up. I need to make sure that I don't end up reading a book that needs to go back to the library. Anyways, thank you as always for being here. It truly makes me happy, and I appreciate that you stuck through it. I hope very much to see you in the next video.